So hi, welcome to Growing's podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with
Brody from Rivers of Nihil.
There were some questions to say about the upcoming self-titled album, so congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Really good. We have 2 singles out, House of Light and American Death, and the response has been really amazing. We just got back from a tour in Europe where we were playing the first single, House of Light, live every night for a month, and really went well. People were really responsive to it, singing along and everything, and you know, all the great stuff that you like to see from new music. But yeah, we have another new single coming out next week. I'm not sure when this episode will be live, but might be out by then. So yeah, people can expect a third single next week. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, we got to jam the whole record, and it rips, man. It's
Dude,
so good.
Shit is immaculate. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm glad you guys like it.
Hell yeah.
Of course, yeah. So is there any reason why this is your self-titled record, and is there any meaning behind the cover art?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the self-titled moniker kind of just signifies like a new era of the band, you know, kind of like a period of rebirth. We've had like pretty big lineup shift since the last record, you know, and, you know, our first 4 records were kind of part of this conceptual suite of the 4 seasons. Our first record was a spring album, our second summer, third fall, and the last record was a winter themed album. And once we wrapped up the 4 album suite, we kind of had to, you know, figure out what we were going to do next. And, you know, I think in no small part, you know, we looked at like a band like Metallica, for example, who went with, you know, self-titled record for their 5th record. And, you know, we thought that it was, we felt like this material was like really powerful and was really, you know, really important for the band and where we were and where things are going to be going for us. We thought that, yeah, putting the self-titled on it would kind of just like maybe make people's ears perk up a little bit and like, like, wow, like bold move. Wonder what that's about. And, you know, for people who don't, who have been following us, you know, they might perk up and tune back in if they haven't in a while. And maybe people who haven't heard of us might see this as like a good starting point to get into the band. I know when I was a kid and I was getting into new bands, if I saw a band's album that was named after the band, oftentimes I would start with that because I would think, this must be important for one reason or another. Sure. So that was part of the thinking. As for the cover art, it's basically supposed to be like a biblically accurate representation of an angel, kind of like the "Be Not Afraid" sort of thing. And you know, the album kind of covers a lot of topics relating to kind of like the evils of the world and the evils of life and the darkness that kind of you can find yourself easily sucked into throughout the course of, you know, living life, whether it's, you know, depression or paranoia or, you know, things that are going on politically or socially or, you know, economically or religiously, just like there's all kinds of things in life that can kind of like suck you into like a really dark place. And, you know, the River of Nihil could kind of be like a metaphor for that place of darkness that can kind of pull you in and trap you, you know, and the overarching theme of the record is kind of this, like, you know, you want to pull yourself away from the darkness and kind of like reach towards the light. And in doing that, like, you oftentimes have to confront yourself at times, you know, and confront, you know, great fears and great pain to kind of, you know, pull through the darkness into the light. So kind of the album artwork is definitely tied in with that theme as well.
Yeah. And the self-title for this record feels like it was like thought out in a sense, because sometimes bands are just like, we just kind of threw it on it, we feel it's our best work. But for you guys, it's like the first 4 records were a concept, so it's like, this is what we sound like without being tied to a concept as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's not. I mean, there is like a loose concept for sure, but it's not as like hardlined as the previous ones. But yeah, like it was definitely, the band went through like the last 4 years have been like a pretty like tumultuous time for us as a band, and for some of us personally, it's been a pretty like rough time. But like we got past a lot of the struggle that we kind of were going through, and have kind of arrived at this place where we feel like we've entered like a new era for the band, and also as individuals, and we feel like we're in kind of top form, both as people and as a functioning band unit, really. So it's kind of like just like it's like a new page in the history of the band, for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm really curious on just kind of your mindset while approaching this record, considering the last 4 records were concepts. They all kind of followed the line of seasons. Now this one is just completely opening up a new chapter. You aren't really working in the confines of seasons or anything at all, really. So was there kind of a moment of, damn, what now? We aren't really working with, okay, well, fall's next, oh, winter's next. It's just kind of, it's your self-titled, it's your own thing now. So what was kind of like the direction? What was kind of the headspace, everything that you guys were kind of taking into consideration while approaching this record?
Yeah, I mean, it was, in a lot of ways, I think that the subject matter on this record, and the music itself kind of like wrote itself in a lot of ways, just because of like all of the stuff that we've been through in the last like 4 years. And I think that, and I'm my role in the band is I do most of the like music. I write the instrumentals. I don't do anything with like the lyrics. That's all Adam, our vocalist. But for me, like musically, not having the kind of like confines of like a true concept album to work within was kind of it was like nice in a way. Like it was a kind of refreshing. I found that on this album, I actually, for the first time in our career, kind of like looked back on our previous albums and examined like, okay, like what worked and what didn't, whereas like I think in the past, a lot of the times what I did is I would kind of just like almost block out the past and just be like, this album has to be as different as possible from all of the other ones under any circumstance. And on this one, I kind of like didn't do that. And in a lot of ways, I just like kind of looked at what we'd already done, looked at what worked, what didn't, looked at the things that did work, and wondered how I could take those maybe general ideas and bring them into the current era and improve upon them and make them even better with the current format of the band. So yeah, I think that, in doing that, I kind of I know it's a cliche to say, but I feel like we got back to basics on this record, in the sense that, I noticed that a lot of the best stuff that we'd ever done together, oftentimes just started with like me and my guitar, just like a riff. Like I think in the last couple records, I've kind of gotten a little more dependent on like the recording software and stuff to like help me write stuff. Like I'll like come up with a melody on like a orchestral plugin or something, like that's not a guitar. But on this record, I found that I wrote like most of the songs with the guitar first. So it like really, all this stuff like really started with like riffs, like, so I think that getting back to kind of the basics of like, we are a heavy band, you know, and like I wanted to like really put that foot forward first on this record again for the first time in a while. And you know, and like I said, just take the stuff that we've done in the past, look at it objectively and figure out like what worked, why it worked, and how it could be made even better with the addition of like Andy, you know, on clean vocals, and Adam, you know, doing main vocals and stuff. So yeah, it was just like, honestly, like, yeah, it was like a big reflective period, I think, creating this record, like looking, like we have 4 records out at this point. So it's like a decent amount of albums to be able to like look back at and kind of reflect on, you know?
That makes sense.
And while kind of looking back, you said that you were looking at him critically and just kind of seeing what worked and what didn't work. So are you referring more to fan like reception of it? People enjoyed this, so we're going to do more of it? Or is it just your own personal preference of, I really liked this part, so I want to do more things similar to this? Or is it a mixture of both?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. I think that I think a lot of times when we're writing records, because we're not writing them live, like on a stage, like I think that a lot of the times it's easy to kind of get lost in the creative haze in a way where like you're almost like on our last record, for example, like there's some tracks that have, or there's some songs on that record that have like 80 tracks on it, you know, and it's like to represent that live effectively is so difficult when there's only 4 or 5 people in your band.
Yeah.
So like, I think that a big part of what we really looked at was like, what are the songs that connect, like both with us as a band, like we feel really great playing, confident playing, like really locked in playing, and what connects with the fans live the most. I think that was like a big part of the creation of this record, was like looking at our past releases and figuring out like which of these songs really connect live for us and the fans, and like why is that, and how can we like lean into that more and even improve upon it.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. So how'd the track list for album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, close be a closer, shuffle and see what fits? What was that process like?
Well, the first song that was written for the record is actually the first song that is on the album.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that that's ever happened before. Oftentimes we, you know, write stuff out of order and then assemble it all at the end. But this one actually, the first song on this album, the Suborbital Blues, is actually the first song that we wrote for the record. Andy and I started writing it together back in 2022. We were in a green room. We were on tour with The Contortionist. I was in Nashville, actually. I remember the exact day. And so, yeah, that's the first one on the record. But other than that, we kind of just like shuffle stuff around. Usually Adam's like the kind of sequencing guy. He's like really good at figuring out like the pacing of an album, you know, like where stuff, you know, where it's good to like put the bangers, and then when it's time for a break, and like where's the ballad go, and like, you know, he's really good at that. Whereas like I'm more the guy that just like, I just like kind of I make the stuff, and then he kind of like figures out where it goes, you know?
Yeah.
He's really good at that. So yeah, he you know, came up with the track listing. You know, obviously like we all talked about it, but like he was definitely the guy that was like spearheading that whole thing. And I think it's paced out really nicely. You know, there's a couple of slammers up front, and then, you know, you get into like Despair Church and House of Light and Water and Time, which are like kind of like epic, big, moments. And then you have a couple more bangers, and then you have like the real proggy stuff at the end of the record. So I think it's balanced out pretty nicely.
I agree.
Damn straight. Yeah. So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this record for the first time? Should they play it in the car with friends, in the dark with headphones on? Should they work out to it? What do you personally recommend?
Well, I was definitely listening to most of this material while at the gym. I would say so maybe at the gym or loud in your car. I mean, you could do it however you want, obviously, but I would say like our last record was definitely more of like a headphones in the dark kind of album. I think, while this isn't necessarily like a happy record or like a completely upbeat record, like it's definitely like got enough high energy on it that like I would say when you're listening to it, you should probably be doing something, whether it's like cruising down the highway, like, blasting it or yeah, like at the gym. Like I said, I like my like vetting process for a lot of this material and like while we were mixing it was like definitely in my headphones at the gym, just because I was able to like really hone in and focus on stuff that could be tweaked or made better or whatever. But yeah, I would say gym or a car, but it should be real loud.
Yeah. A car doing the speed limit, of course. That's how I jammed it on my way to work this morning.
Right, yeah. Not 120 miles per hour.
No,
right?
as much as I felt like doing it, I maintained the speed limit.
Right.
So this question should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
I would say beautiful, heavy. That's beautiful, heavy, and just powerful, I guess. Beautiful, heavy, and powerful. I don't know if heavy and powerful are overlapping, but it feels that feels right to me, I guess.
Yeah, that works.
That's straight.
Hell yeah.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the same vein as the last question, but not as much pressure, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want this album to evoke in your listeners?
Yeah, probably like hope, I guess. I think a lot of metal albums are kind of like steeped in like pessimism and negativity and darkness. And while there is plenty of that on this record, like I think the overall message of the record is more a message of hopefulness and optimism. So probably hope, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Hell yeah. So can you talk about any particularly challenging or standout moments during the creation of this album, positive or negative?
Well, the title track was initially the final version of the title track, which is the last song on the record. It ended up being 3 minutes long on the final version, but when we first wrote it, it was 12 or 13 minutes long.
Goddamn.
Whoa.
Yeah, I remember. I thought, oh, the song is the name of the album, and it's also the name of the band. It has to be like the most insane and epic thing ever.
Yeah.
But so I wrote it out, and it ended up being like super long. And we were on tour, listening to it on a drive, and we were just listening to it, and me and Biggs like Adam turned to each other. And we were just like, man, this is so boring. Like we were just like, this is like, I want to turn it off after 3 minutes. So like, we really cut that song down. Like we kind of just examined it and thought like, what are like the core elements of like what makes this song good? Like what are the best like 3 or 4 moments on this 13-minute long track? And basically we cut everything down to like what was just really truly important to that song, and it's what ended up being like the 3 minutes that close out the record. And I think it's like a really powerful song to close out the album. It has like everything that kind of is synonymous with our band. It has like the kind of post metally, post rocky like intro with like good helping of like prog and stuff. It has like a real melodic like clean guitar solo, and then it has like the 3-part harmonies on vocals that come in, and then it kind of closes out with this big kind of breakdown almost. So it's got the heavy, it's got the prog, it's got the beauty, and it's got kind of like the mystery, which are like 4 things that I think our band has kind of become known for. So that song was I wouldn't say it was hard to write, but we had to make some executive decisions on what to do with that one before it ended up, being in its final form.
Makes sense. I'm glad that you brought up the self-titled track on the self-titled album, because I'm curious about like the thought process for naming it that. We have bands on the podcast that joke about doing that when we chat about their self-titled record, but no one that's ever done it. So I'm just curious.
I mean, I don't write any of the lyrics, so like it wasn't my decision. But when Adam told me we were gonna do it, I was just like, yeah, let's do it. Just because why not? Because like, I mean, and it's funny too because it's the last song on the record, and like in the age of like streaming, oftentimes songs that are later on the albums don't get paid as much attention to because they're later in the track listing. But like, I guarantee you that song is going to get, like, people are going to want to know what that song sounds like. Yeah. So, I don't think that Adam did that for like any kind of like humorous reason or anything. Like, I'm sure he legitimately was like, this closing that, I mean, and hilariously, the final line of lyrics on the record is Rivers of Nihil. Yeah. So you have Rivers of Nihil on the album, Rivers of Nihil, by Rivers of Nihil, and the last line on the record is Rivers of Nihil. So like, there's a lot of Rivers of Nihils, but it's cool that we can add ourselves to the smallish list of bands that have the song, the album, and the band name.
Yeah, it's badass.
Brings a tear to my eye. It's wonderful.
Oh yeah.
And so for this question, I want you to picture you're on tour. You're at a gas station for a rest stop. You're going in. What is your snack of choice?
Oh, well, it depends on the time of day. Like if we're talking breakfast, I'm probably getting coffee, orange juice. I really like those, like, those Bevita breakfast crackers. They're like the blueberry ones. I really like those because they're just like super crispy, and like they kind of fill you up for a little bit. Might get might get a Cliff Bar. I'm a big fan of like bagel, egg, cheese kind of sandwichy things. So if there's a good one, I'll reach for that. If it's in the evening, probably gonna get I don't know, probably get like Doritos or something. I'm also a big fan of like peanuts, almonds. I don't know. I generally try to avoid like super dense, like doughy, carby, cheesy stuff when I'm on tour, because it just like, especially as early in the day, because like I just end up like feeling like so tired from like just like the carb crash or sugar crash. Like candy is like, as tempting as it is, I usually try to avoid that just because like you're already not like getting great sleep, so to just like overload your system with like a bunch of sugar is probably just gonna like make you feel even sleepier. So I try to eat relatively healthy on tour, but there's always slip ups.
Absolutely.
It happens.
Oh yeah.
It happens.
And for the last couple of questions, going to shift completely away from music and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Last meal? Well, it would probably have to be some kind of pasta. I'm like a big pasta guy. I know we were just talking about how I try to avoid carbs, but probably like some kind of like, penny pasta with like vodka sauce and lots of cheese. And man, basically like something you could get at the Olive Garden, really. Probably like a big ass salad, like some garlic bread, big bowl of pasta. Either that or some Taco Bell, go out on some Bell, I guess. That would be another one that I would actually seriously consider if it was my last meal. So, because like, funny enough, like whenever we get back from a different country, oftentimes the first place I go is Taco Bell, because it's just like you know,
Reset the
American
equilibrium.
flag, man.
yeah, they don't have like they don't. I mean, there's Taco Bell some places like we found one in Helsinki, Finland. We found one in Scotland, but they're not like everywhere like they are in the States. So oftentimes when we come back, I'll go run into a Taco Bell to reintegrate. You know.
Of course.
That's awesome.
Feels like home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
One fictional world for a week. Well, I mean, probably the most obvious answer for me would be Middle Earth, just because I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I mean, either that or, ooh, tough though. I'm thinking of different places. Either Middle Earth or Twin Peaks. I'm a big Twin Peaks fan. So, but I've actually been to, I think it's called South Bend or North Bend, Washington, which is where Twin Peaks was filmed. So I've actually been there to the actual restaurant where they did all the filming and stuff there. And so I've kind of been there, and that's kind of just like the real world. So probably Middle Earth, I guess.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And I've asking the last question. Every single person that you've spoken to have said that it is the most important question. What is your favorite color?
Green.
Specific shade of green.
Oh,
The shade that's on my guitar.
Nice.
ooh.
Like
It's
the
like chromacopia green.
yeah, actually, yeah. Okay, Tyler, you're a Tyler fan then?
Oh my god, through and through. Hell
Nice.
yeah.
I actually, one of the gigs that I have off tour is as a stagehand, and a couple of months ago, he came to my work to do his rehearsal for the Chromacopia tour, and I got to see the setup and everything. It was pretty awesome, but yeah, that's cool. Yeah, but basically, yeah, that same color.
Flex, oh, it's nothing. Anyways, let me just move on from that.
No,
That's crazy.
no,
That's fucking
I mean,
awesome.
but yeah, it was cool, but yeah, everything was green. He had all like the storage containers green, like even all of the road cases were green that he had all of his gear in and stuff. So, but yeah, that color green, I guess.
That's
Fucking dope.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
For sure.
So as I said, that's all the questions you have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Just the new album is out May 30th on Metal Blade Records. You can pre-order it at riversofnihil.com. We're leaving for a North American tour, which starts in Philadelphia on May 22nd. It'll be us headlining, then Holy Fawn, Inner Arma, and Glacial Tomb, and that'll be running from like May 22nd through mid-June. So come see us in North America.
Hell yeah.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you. So now it's been Brody from Rivers of Nihil, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.